Hi, and welcome again to Holistic Health. This lesson is going to cover Chapter 1 from the Healthy Living text, which is entitled Health, the Foundation for Life. And if I can get the slide, here we go. So what is health? There are lots of definitions of health, and you may have often heard the saying, if you have your health, you have everything. Typically when we think of health, we think of the physical aspect of health, but in this course and in this chapter especially, we're going to discuss all the aspects of health. So things like the mental and emotional and intellectual and environmental components that play into health as well. So some of the definitions of health include a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease, and that was presented by the World Health Organization, a resource for everyday life, a positive concept emphasizing social and personal resources, and also health being able to allow you to do the things that you want to be able to do. And what we should sort of take from all of these definitions is that health and wellness are holistic. It isn't just physical health that keeps us healthy. It involves all aspects of the individual. So as far as this text goes, it defines health as a dynamic state of the human organism that is multidimensional, which includes physical, emotional, social, intellectual, spiritual, and occupational health, a resource for living, and results from the interactions with and adaptations to his or her environment. And again, we're going to get into all the components of holistic health as we go through this chapter, and really we're going to tie that in as we go through this whole course. So good health enables independent functioning in a constantly changing environment. If someone is typically considered healthy, they're able to adapt to any environmental changes around them and still be able to do all the things that they want to be able to do. Wellness is a sense that you're functioning at your best level, so that you don't have diseases or disabilities, and that you're doing things sort of at an optimal level. And again, as we previously mentioned, health and wellness are holistic. They take into account a lot of different things. So these are the 6 major components of health according to your textbook, and those include physical health, which is again the overall condition of your organ and organ systems; psychological health, the ability to deal effectively with any psychological challenges that come your way; social health is the ability to form healthy relationships with friends and family; intellectual health is using problem solving and higher order thinking skills to deal with any challenges; spiritual health is belief in something larger and belief that your life has some sort of purpose; and environmental health are the conditions in which one lives, works, and plays. And so, as you can probably imagine, again, all of these are going to kind of overlap one another. So some successes we've had as far as the U.S. population goes and the health of the population. Since 1900, so over the past 100 years or so, life expectancy has increased from 50 to 78 years, which is pretty remarkable. The rate of childhood vaccination has increased, which has decreased the amount of childhood diseases and illnesses which we have seen, which has also helped to increase life expectancy. There's been a reduction in nutritional deficiency diseases, and increased education and engagement in prenatal care, which increases or decreases infant mortality rates. There's also an increase in the overall percentage of Americans who are making healthy life choices, things like increasing their physical activity, wearing seat belts, adopting more healthy diet plans, getting regular medical checkups, and even in the past 30 to 40 years, life expectancy has increased as well. Some concerns that we still have with the U.S. population: the leading cause of death in the United States are still lifestyle related. Tobacco is still the leading cause of preventable illness and death in the United States. Many Americans do still die prematurely. Again, tobacco, alcohol, and drug use persist, and we will talk about all of those in later chapters in this course. There is a lack of physical activity. While more and more people are aware of the importance of physical activity, that doesn't mean everyone's getting as much physical activity as they should. The typical American does not meet federal recommendations regarding healthy food choices and physical activity levels. And this is seen in the prevalence of obesity in all American populations. So poor diet plays into that as well. So to address some of the health concerns, there were some different government regulations who came up with what they called Healthy People 2020. This was originally a task force that began in 1980. They published their first results in 1991, which was Healthy People 2000, and the goals that they had at that time and in that place for where they wanted Americans to be by the year 2000. This is reevaluated about every 10 years, so we have actually just hit the Healthy People 2020 mark, and they are currently doing some assessment and reevaluation and starting to develop the Healthy People 2030. So they take a look at this about every 10 years. So the goals for Healthy People 2020 was to attain high quality, longer lives, free from preventable disease, disability, injury, and premature death. So not only are people living longer, but we want those people to live better in those longer years and not deal with sickness and illness a lot at the end. Achieve health equity, eliminate disparities, and improve the health of all groups. There have been noted some disparities in healthcare and health situations of people with different ethnic, racial, socioeconomic backgrounds, and we will talk a little bit about that as we move forward. Create social and physical environments that promote good health for all and promote the quality of life, healthy development, and healthy behaviors. So those were kind of the highlights of Healthy People 2020. Again, one of those addressed health disparities, and this is typically where we see poor health in minority groups. So a minority group is a group where the members of the group differ from the social majority based on one of the following. So things like ethnicity, race, gender, wealth, sexual orientation. In the U.S., the race and ethnic groups, usually, if you fill out a form, you have to check one of these boxes, are considered to be Caucasian or white, African American or Black, Hispanic or Latino, American Indian or Native American, and Asian or Pacific Islanders. So again, sometimes people don't fall just into one of those categories, and then other minority groups include different religions, sexual preferences, age, either extremely young or extremely old, and those with disabilities. And again, based on some of those groups, people might not always have equal access to health care and healthy lifestyle choices. So, again, we're classified by race and ethnicity here. Some of the other factors that they found that have a significant impact on someone's health are their income level, the amount of health insurance coverage that they have, how much education they have, and how many years they have lived in the United States. Regardless of racial and ethnic backgrounds, people who have a higher level of education usually have higher incomes and have better health than those with less education and less income. And a lot of that comes down to health insurance coverage as well. Many chronic diseases are associated with poor standards of living. Life expectancy also tends to be lower in people in minority populations. So again, one of the goals of Healthy People 2020 was to try to fix that, or at least address it. Genetics and genomics. Genetics plays a part in health as well. If your parents had some sort of chronic health condition, there is an increased chance that you could possibly have that condition as well. Genes are segments of DNA that are passed down from parent to child and so on. And if there's a mistake in that genetic code, it can result in the production of faulty proteins and cause disease and possibly even death. The 10 leading causes of death in the United States, and some of these, and not necessarily in this order, but heart disease, cancer, strokes, diabetes, Alzheimer's, all of those chronic diseases do have a genetic component to them. So again, if parents or grandparents had these diseases, it is more likely to be passed down from one generation to the next. Genomics is the study of all of your person's genes or your genome, and the ways that they interact with each other and the environment to influence your health. So they are looking into doing genomic testing for diagnosing, predicting, and treating some chronic diseases. One example, and I know this from personal experience, is like testing that they do for the breast cancer gene. My mom happened to have breast cancer, and so because they do know that some types of breast cancer have a genetic component to it, they tested my mom, they tested me to determine, to try to diagnose me or try to predict, should I develop that later in life? And so that's some of the ways that we're trying to use genes to try to be more healthy. So understanding health behaviors. Why do some people have more positive health-related behaviors than others, and what sort of motivates our health behavior? And some of those things are our personal beliefs and values, perceived needs and barriers, self-efficacy, belief that we can actually change our behavior, perceived vulnerability, perception of control, whether or not we feel, again, like that we're in control of our own decisions, and cultural and societal influence as well. Knowledge of health effects can influence people's decisions, but it doesn't necessarily motivate people. For example, again, we know the importance of not smoking, eating a healthy diet, getting plenty of physical activity, but does that mean that everyone does those things? No. So there does have to be some sort of internal motivation to actually make changes. And so through many psychological studies, they have come up with the stages of behavior change. And so these are the stages, or 5 or so stages of behavior change. The example that they use in your textbook is someone who is trying to quit smoking. I think another example would be trying to make a change to eat a more healthy diet. And so the stages are pre-contemplation, which is where you're not even really thinking about it at all. No, you don't really have an interest in changing that behavior. And then you make that switch to a contemplation stage where you're actually sort of realizing and admitting that you might be doing something unhealthy. Preparation is making plans. How are you going to change? How am I going to quit smoking? How am I going to change my diet so that I'm eating more healthy foods? And then action is actually taking steps to do that. Going out and buying more healthy foods, not going out to buy more cigarettes. Those would be actions. And then maintenance is actually developing habits to avoid a relapse and getting back into that poor behavior again. Your book also talks about a decision-making model. And again, making decisions can be a complex process. Some people struggle with this more than others. I'm one of those people. I am terrible at making decisions. But there's a lot that goes into making a decision. Collecting information, doing research, your own attitude and beliefs and experiences influence your decision-making processes. And so the book lists a couple of steps that you can take when you're trying to make a decision. And one is to just start off by identifying what is the problem, what is the behavior I need to change, what's going on here. And then make a list of benefits and harms, or pros and cons of what would happen if I change this behavior or don't. Decide whether or not then you want to change after you've sort of listed everything out. Set a target date, set goals, list out ways to be successful, and then prepare an action plan. Put the plan into action, and then record your progress so that you can actually see how you're doing. So you may have heard a lot about prevention, and the goal with prevention is try to prevent people from developing diseases, infections, injuries, birth defects, and other serious health conditions, because the idea is that prevention should be less costly than trying to treat the diseases once they actually develop. So a lot of places now, insurance companies, workplaces, are offering incentives for people making healthy lifestyle choices. So again, hopefully by living a more healthy life, you won't develop some of these chronic conditions that cost billions of healthcare dollars every year. Besides healthy behaviors, routine health care is also important. Regular doctor visits, checkups, just to make sure everything is as it should be. In your book, this is on page 19 in chapter 1, this is an example of routine health care and the adult recommendations. So things that are included on there are things like regular blood pressure screenings, cholesterol screenings, glucose or blood sugar levels, vaccinations, And again, just some of the regular things that we want to do to make sure that we're maintaining as good of health as we possibly can. And again, these are things that are typically within our control. So health information, analyzing health information, there is a lot of it out there, right? And so how do we know what's good information and what isn't? And so again, because there's so much out there and so many sources, articles, ads, infomercials, websites, it's literally everywhere these days. We do want to be able to determine, is this credible information or not? And so we'll talk about on the next slide the analysis model and how we can sort of judge, is this something I should sort of buy into or not? A general pretty good rule of thumb too is if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, right? Think of all like the miracle drugs you've seen on TV, and here, just take this pill and you'll lose all this weight. If it sounds like it's too easy, then it's probably not going to work. So we'll go through this analysis model and how we can kind of use that to determine what kind of information we're getting and whether or not we should believe everything that we see out there. So some questions that you can ask yourself when you are trying to determine how effective some claim might be. Look at the statements and determine which would be verifiable facts or which wouldn't be verifiable. And verifiable just means you can go and you can look for some research to back it up, like they did a study and they found that it was successful in this many people versus this many people. What are the credentials of the person who wrote the article or advertisement? Are they a medical doctor? Do they have any research experience? Or is this someone who's just getting paid to give you their opinion? What might be their motives or biases? Studies that are done by the manufacturer of the product, the drug, the wonder drug or whatever it is. They're definitely going to have a bias. They're going to want to show that their product works. And so we might not always trust their results as much as if they had like an independent reviewer come in and do a study. Look for information that's relevant. Are they making claims that might not have anything to do with this or other health benefits? Is the source reliable? And does it attack the credibility of conventional scientists or medical authorities? Because if it does, then that's usually not something we want to jump right into. Again, a lot of the things that we see out there now, it's people trying to sell a product and they're going to do whatever it takes and make it look super appealing so that they can make their money. And so this is just one example. This is an ad for an herbal supplement. And so this is on page 25 in your book if you want to take a closer look or see a better look of this. But basically what it goes through is it just talks about like testimonials where it's one person's opinion of what this herbal supplement did for them. And this person may even be paid by the company to give their testimonial. There's not a lot of scientific evidence in this ad. They don't talk about clinical trials or studies or the percentage of people who have had a reduction in their health problems because of taking this herbal supplement. So again, this is an ad for a company that's trying to sell a product and they're going to make it sound as appealing as they can. So with all of this stuff, just take a practical approach. Again, do your research and try to find out really how valuable something like this might be. And again, how do we assess this information? So again, think about the source. Who is providing this information? Is it a commercial site? Is it the manufacturer of this product that they're trying to sell? Is it sponsored by a nationally known health or medical organization? Can they claim that the American Medical Association backs up the use of this product? Is the site staffed by health or medical experts affiliated with research institutions or universities? Because if so, they would be more likely, because they're more able to carry out clinical trials and research studies, to actually have some good research there. And does the site include up-to-date references from good sources? So we'll talk just for a minute about conventional medicine versus complementary and alternative medicine. Conventional medicine is what we typically think of here in Western culture as modern scientific principles, modern technologies, scientifically proven methods to prevent, diagnose, and treat health problems. This is going to your doctor, going to a hospital when something seems wrong. Complementary and alternative medicines are just that, alternative ways of treatment that aren't conventional medicines. So the book does go into the difference between an unconventional treatment. It's complementary when it's used with conventional care. So someone might be receiving regular conventional treatment for cancer and try some unconventional treatments as well. So maybe they're getting chemo and radiation, but they're also taking some herbal supplements to help with some of the side effects. Alternative therapy replaces conventional medicine treatment. So this would be maybe where someone decides not to get chemo or radiation for cancer, but instead tries an alternative therapy, which are listed on the next slide here. So some common alternative therapies, things that you might have heard before, would be things like acupuncture, Ayurvedic medicine, chiropractic medicine, homeopathy, naturopathy or natural medicine. This is where you get into like herbal supplements, therapeutic massage or zone therapy, things like reflexology, yoga. Those would all fall under alternative therapies. And there are some concerns, especially from people who are very convinced about conventional medicine, and that the biggest one is that people might rely on these alternative treatments and delay seeking conventional treatments. Typically, the conventional treatments have been proven to be successful, or your doctor is going to try to choose the treatment method that will best treat your disease. And if you don't get that conventional care right away, then the disease could potentially progress or get worse. Again, scientific evidence to support some of these alternative therapies is often lacking. The benefit may also be the result of the placebo effect, so that someone basically thinks because they're using this alternative medicine that they're getting better, and sometimes it does actually help a little bit. Natural doesn't always mean that it's safe. There are some alternative therapies that for certain patients could actually be dangerous. So it is important to do our research, talk to your doctor about some of these alternative therapies, and determine whether or not they're going to be worth a shot for you. And again, always do your research into any of these alternative therapies and make an informed decision before trying them. Herbs as medicine. Some herbs do have some beneficial health effects. It is important to consider that dietary supplements are supposed to be just that, a supplement. They may add some nutrients, herbs, or other plant materials to a person's diet, but you should still be trying to get and consume a healthy diet. Dietary supplements are not regulated like medications by the FDA. The Food and Drug Administration does require that all supplements list all ingredients. That was as of about 2007 that had to happen. But medications, prescription medications, even over-the-counter medications have to go through a pretty rigorous process to prove that they are safe. A lot of dietary supplements do not go through that same process. And you will see it labeled on most packaging that these statements have not been evaluated by the FDA, or this is not FDA approved or endorsed. And so you do want to use a little bit more caution if you're considering consuming some of those products. Again, not every herbal product is going to have a beneficial effect on someone's health. Some do. Again, more research is needed into a lot of these herbal remedies. And again, there are some that could actually be dangerous. So you do want to be cautious when considering using herbal supplements. And choosing a conventional medical practitioner, choosing a doctor. Ask your families and friends. This was what I did when I moved to a new city. Ask the people I knew there. Who's a good doctor? Who's your doctor? Who do you go to? Do you like them? Do you trust them? Stay within your approved providers. If you're lucky enough to have health care, you usually do want to stick with someone who's going to be covered under your plan. That will minimize the amount of out-of-pocket costs that you have. And then choose a physician who has, some of the desired characteristics that you would look for. Appropriate training, medical credentials, someone that you can sort of build a relationship with. I lucked into finding one of the best doctors I think I could when I moved out here almost 20 years ago, and I've been going to that same doctor ever since, and I really like her because she sits down and talks to me and listens to my opinions and my questions, and we ration through things sort of together and make decisions together, and I don't feel like it's her just saying, here, you need to go do this, and sends me on my way. So I think it is important because it is part of a healthy lifestyle to have somewhat regular contact with a doctor, just again to do those check-ins, even if it's just once a year, to kind of see how things are, to help maintain proper health. So that is it for Chapter 1. Thanks for listening, and if you have any questions, please just let me know.